Chapter 1: Why you must stress less. We all know that stress is bad for us, and this is something we get told very often. However, it's all too easy to write this off as being a minor nuisance or frustration rather than anything to really worry about. We all get stressed from time to time, right? In reality though, this is the wrong way to think about stress. While it is fairly commonplace, that it is not to say that it isn't serious. In fact, stress is incredibly serious and can cause severe problems both in the short term and long term. Stress can shorten your lifespan, ruin your enjoyment, cause serious illness, shrink your brain, hurt your performance, ruin your relationships, cause impotence. Do those sound like small matters? To understand this better, it can help to look more closely at what precisely stress is, how it causes the problems it does, and how and why you need to do everything you can to prevent and reduce it. So what exactly is stress? Stress is what we feel when we are overworked, when we are dreading something that's about to happen, or when we are generally unable to relax and stay calm due to outside or inside factors influencing our thoughts. But it actually goes beyond this. Stress is a basic physiological reaction that is designed to help us focus and survive. In itself, it's not a bad thing. It is actually rather adaptive. The problem is that it has been taken out of context, which means the positive effect become outweighed by the negative. Essentially, stress is what causes the fight or flight response. This is a physiological response to perceived danger designed to improve our chances of survival. If you were to see a lion, for example, this will trigger a cascade of effects collectively resulting in the stress response. This begins when we observe danger or experience fear. Increased activity in our brain causes the release of adrenaline as well as dopamine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. This is our stress hormones. This then triggers a number of physiological changes, increasing our heart rate, making us breathe more quickly, and making us more acutely focused on the potential threat. A list of the symptoms should include increased heart rate, rapid, shallow breathing, muscle contraction, tunnel vision, heightened sensitivity, increased blood viscosity, suppression of the pain response, suppression of the immune system, suppression of the digestive system, dilation of the pupils, dilation of the blood vessels, reduction in prefrontal cortex activity, temporal hypofrontality. In the short term, this is good for us, but in the short term, these things help us to evade danger and win combative situations. Increased muscle tension make us stronger. Increased blood viscosity make our blood more likely to clot in case of injury. Dilated pupils let more light into to improve our vision. Suppression of secondary function means that more blood can be sent to the muscle and brain. Reduced pain means we can carry on fighting or running despite injury. In short, anything that can help you to survive is prioritized, while secondary functions are suppressed. The idea is that once we get to safety, we can then turn off this fight or flight response and instead enter the rest and digest state in order to recover. Once the predator is gone, we can recover. But the problem is that in our modern environments, predators aren't the main problems. It's rare these days for us to be chased, to get into a fight, or to need to escape a forest fire. What's not so rare is for our boss to shout at us and to tell us that we are late for our deadline. It's not rare for us to be in debt. It's not rare for us to have marital problems. And unfortunately, the brain interprets all these signals in just the same way, as threats. And this causes the same fight or flight response. But because this type of threat aren't so easily resolved, This means will often end up on heightened alert for a longer period of time. This is also why stress causes importance in men. If you are highly stressed, blood is sent everywhere except the genitals, and this takes a tremendous toll on our bodies. As you might imagine, it is not good for you when your immune system and digestive system are suppressed for days. It is also not good for your brain to be flooded with norepinephrine and cortisol. It's not good for your heart rate to stay elevated or your blood pressure to stay high. This is the problem with chronic stress as opposed to acute stress. And it's the problem with heightened level of stress as opposed to the gentle motivating force of eustress. We'll look at all of this more in the long term. But suffice to say that the longer stress like this continues, the more you start to feel drained, malnourished, fatigued, ill, and possibly eventually depressed. How stress damages the brain? When we are stressed, it effectively makes us less intelligent. This is due to reduction in prefrontal activity, which in turn is designed to make us more focused and alert. Essentially, the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain responsible for forward planning, creative thinking, and other high-order brain activity. When you are being chased by a lion, though, it is really not the time to be thinking about the meaning of life. So, shutting down this part of the brain and placing your focus on feedback from your senses make much more sense. Of course, that's not particularly useful in the workplace, though. And this is why the stress response is so seriously unhelpful when we have to give a presentation, answer a question on the spot, or go on a date. This is when we lose all articulation and start stammering and saying useless things. Slightly longer term is adrenal fatigue. This is what happens when your brain has exhausted its supply of adrenaline and other stress hormones. This might sound like a good thing, but you actually need a little norepinephrine, dopamine, and cortisol to stay motivated and even to wake up in the morning. Adrenal fatigue leaves you listless, demotivated, and potentially depressed. It can also cause what is known as learned helplessness, a condition where you essentially completely give up because your brain has been conditioned to learn that any attempts to change a situation will be met with failure. Not good. Worse, when you are highly stressed, it can lead to long-term problems for your brain health. As we briefly mentioned it can really shrink your brain. Studies show that in the long term, it leads to structural changes that shrink the hippocampus and shrink gray matter, the all-important neural connection throughout the brain. Even a single severe traumatic event can result in significant reduction in the medial PFC, anterior cingulate, and subgenual regions of the brain. The effect of cumulative adversity, meanwhile, causes smaller volume in the medium prefrontal cortex, which is the PFC, insular cortex, and anterior cingulate regions. This region of the brain corresponds with emotional control, decision-making, reasoning, and self-control. In other words, the eventual result of stress is to leave you more reactionary, more depressive, more impulsive, and less disciplined. From here, every aspect of your life will start to see negative effects. But there are things you can do about it.